What if I told you that two states in India are about to copy Australia's playbook and ban social media for anyone under 16? And here's the thing, this might actually work, or it could be a complete disaster. Either way, America needs to pay attention because this conversation is coming to your state capital very, very soon. So this week, some pretty significant news dropped out of India that flew completely under the radar here in the States. Two Indian states, Goa and Andhra Pradesh, are seriously considering implementing laws that would ban children under 16 from using social media platforms. And if you're thinking, wait, didn't Australia just do this? You're absolutely right, they did. And now India, the world's largest democracy with over 1 billion people, is watching closely and thinking about following suit. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Why should I care about what's happening in India? Well, here's the thing. India is basically a testing ground for tech policy right now. They've got over 800 million internet users. Their kids are just as glued to their phones as ours are, and the decisions they make about regulating big tech could literally shape how the rest of the world approaches this problem. So let's break this down. First, let me give you some quick context for those of you who might not be super familiar with how India works. India is a federal system, kind of like ours, with 28 states and a central government. Each state has its own government, its own ministers, and a lot of autonomy on certain issues. Goa is this tiny coastal state on the western side of India. Think of it like the Florida of India. Beaches, tourism, party scene. It's actually smaller than Rhode Island in terms of population. Then you've got Andhra Pradesh, which is a much larger state in the south, known for its tech industry and education focus. Now, both these states are independently looking at Australia's social media law and saying, hey, maybe we should do this too. And that's interesting because in India, tech regulation usually comes from the central government in New Delhi. So you've got states trying to take matters into their own hands here, which creates some fascinating legal and logistical questions. So let's start with Goa. The state's IT minister, Rohan, if I'm pronouncing the name right, came out publicly and said that his department is actively studying Australia's ban. And here's the quote that really stood out to me. He said, "We have had a lot of complaints from parents. Social media and some of these platforms are becoming a distraction for the children, leading to a lot of social implications." And honestly, that sounds exactly like what I hear from parents here in America. Kids at the dinner table scrolling through TikTok instead of talking to their families, teenagers developing anxiety and depression because of Instagram, the constant comparison culture, the cyberbullying. These are universal problems, right? They don't stop at national borders. Rohan went on to say that his team has already pulled the Australian legislation and is reviewing it. They're planning to discuss it with the chief minister. That's basically like the governor of the state. In India, each state has a legislative assembly that meets periodically to pass laws, kind of like our state legislatures. What I found particularly interesting is the framing here. Rohan specifically mentioned artificial intelligence and said the goal is to get kids more focused on education and technology related to education. So it's not just about keeping kids off social media, it's about redirecting that attention towards skills that will actually help them in the future economy. That's a pretty sophisticated argument if you'd ask me. Now, Andhra Pradesh actually jumped on this bandwagon a few days before Goa did. Their IT and education minister, Nara Lokesh, announced that the state government was mulling a similar proposal, and they've already set up what's called a group of ministers to study the proposal. It's a formal mechanism that shows they're taking this seriously. The party in power in Andhra Pradesh is called the Telugu Desam Party, or TDP. They've positioned themselves as a technology-forward, development-focused party. So this isn't coming from some technophobic corner of Indian politics. These are people who understand and embrace technology, but are also recognizing that maybe unlimited access for children isn't the best approach. Now, let's talk about what Australia actually did, because if India copies this, it matters what the original blueprint looks like. The Australian law is called the Online Safety Amendment, specifically the Social Media Minimum Age Act, and it's actually pretty comprehensive. The law doesn't just say kids under 16 can't sign up for new accounts. It goes further. Platforms are expected to take reasonable steps to identify existing accounts held by kids under 16 and deactivate or remove those accounts. And they also have to prevent workarounds, so no VPNs, no fake birthdays, no creating accounts through different methods to bypass restrictions. And here's a part that I think is actually pretty thoughtful. The law requires platforms to have processes for correcting errors. So if your 17-year-old gets mistakenly flagged as being underage and loses their account, there needs to be a way to fix that. It's not a perfect system, but they're at least trying to build in some fairness mechanisms. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory. Protect the kids, limit their exposure to harmful content, get them focused on school instead of scrolling. But here's where it gets complicated, and this is where I have some serious questions. First, there's the enforcement problem. The internet doesn't have border checkpoints. Age verification on the web is notoriously unreliable. In India, specifically, digital access is widespread, but regulation is uneven. Millions of people share devices. Kids use their parents' accounts. Birth dates are easily falsified. How exactly do you enforce this? Second, there's the jurisdictional issue. Social media companies are governed by national frameworks, not state-level rules. In India, that means platforms like Instagram, YouTube, and whatever else kids are using answer to federal regulations, not state governments. So if Goa passes a law banning social media for under 16s, does Meta have to comply? Can they even technically implement state-specific restrictions in a country of over 1 billion people? These are genuine questions that nobody seems to have answered yet. Third, and this is the argument that really makes me think, there's the question of whether restriction actually equals solution. Kids today don't just use social media for entertainment. Their friendships happen there. Their identities form there. In some cases, their education happens there. A sudden prohibition might not eliminate exposure, but just push usage underground, into spaces where parents and schools have even less visibility. So here's where I land on this, and I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. I think the impulse behind these proposed bans is absolutely legitimate. Parents are genuinely worried. Teachers are seeing the effects in classrooms. Mental health professionals are ringing alarm bells. Something needs to be done. But I'm skeptical that blanket bans are the answer. And I'm not saying that because I'm some libertarian who thinks government should never regulate anything. I'm saying it because I think there's a smarter approach. Instead of trying to lock kids out of the digital world entirely, why not focus on making that world safer? Mandatory child-safe default settings on all platforms, strict limits on algorithmic amplification for accounts identified as minors, banning targeted advertising to kids, real accountability when platforms fail to remove harmful content. And here's the big one, digital literacy education. Teach kids how these platforms work, explain the business model, show them why content is designed to be addictive, help them understand that what they see on Instagram isn't reality. Give them the critical thinking tools to navigate this world rather than just trying to build a wall around it. India actually has an opportunity here. India already has regulatory instruments for data protection and intermediary responsibility. The problem isn't the absence of laws, it's the implementation gaps. Many parents aren't even aware of the safety tools that already exist. Schools don't have structured programs on digital behavior. Now, why am I spending this much time on Indian state politics? Because this exact debate is already happening here. Multiple states have tried to pass social media regulations for minors. Utah, Arkansas, Texas, they've all taken shots at this, and they've all run into the same constitutional and practical challenges. What happens in India could provide a roadmap or a cautionary tale for American policymakers. If Goa and Andhra Pradesh manage to implement these bans effectively, you can bet American legislators will be studying their playbook. And if it falls apart, well, that's valuable information too. We're at this inflection point globally where societies are deciding how much power tech companies should have over our children's attention. Australia made one choice, India might follow, and eventually we are going to have to make our own decisions too. So I want to know what you think. Should governments ban social media for kids under 16? Is it an overreach or is it necessary protection? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And hey, if you're a parent watching this, I'm genuinely curious. Would you support a law like this in your state? Let me know. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay curious, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.